Hi, my name is Trish. I'm a trauma-informed life coach, and I want to talk to you about intuition and how to develop your intuition responsibly. So here's the thing. I refer to myself as equal parts healer and hood. I have a strong intuition. I've had a strong intuition ever since I was a little girl. I've been told it runs in my family line. I don't know about any of that, but I do know that there is a trick to this, and I want to show you some of the pitfalls that I think people fall into and what it looks like, especially right now at this time in the collective consciousness, because we are in a stage of massive awakening. I think more so than any other time in human history, maybe barring the coming of Christ. And so, interestingly, what I'm about to remind you of is very similar to, I believe, what Jesus was trying to teach as well. And it's a way to begin to understand what the totality of the intuitive experience is in a way that most people, I don't think, quite get it. And by the way, I don't know why I get it. I just get it. So hopefully this resonates with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, don't worry about it. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. There are multiple realities, and this is just one idea. Okay, so intuition, intuitive information, guidance from your higher self, guidance from beyond the higher self, guidance into the spiritual realms, comes through as a frequency. Okay, so that's the first part of it. Frequency is how most communication happens on this plane. It also happens in other realms, but specifically on the earth plane, frequency, I believe Einstein said this, that frequency is everything, right? We think it's our thoughts, we think it's the reality, we think it's these items, but really it's just frequency. So if you're a geek like me, it's basically physics, it's quantum physics, it's energy physics. So if we can agree that intuition is in a frequency-based communication, right? You can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it, but it's just a knowing. There's something about it. And you can talk about the clairs, clairsentient, claircognizance, clairvoyance, all the clairs. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, right? I'm just blanking right now. But those clairs all come through as frequency. So clairsentient people, they feel things. Claircognizant people just kind of know things. Clairvoyant people see things. But all those things that they're sensing are coming through a frequency, an intuitive frequency, right? And intuition is something that the CIA and the government agencies have hired people to do forever and ever and ever. It's not a new thing. It's not some weird witchy shit. It's a real thing. So I'll say this, like once you kind of understand that and you understand frequency, it's not that hard to tap in. In fact, it's really not hard at all, especially because the consciousness is awakening so much that people are able to channel and intuit, I would say, at least 60% more easily than, say, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. In fact, at that time frames, people weren't able to pick up on those frequencies, mostly because the frequency on the planet was so dense. But now, because of this collective awakening, the frequency, the Schumann scale, right? People say that all kinds of different ways. But if you like to measure frequency, you can look at that and you can see that the frequency of the earth itself is changing. The frequency is rising. This is why I believe more people are able to tap into that intuitive frequency. Okay, so now that we've got that covered, what do I think is missing and what do I think people are not understanding? Specifically, people that are able to tap in. Here's the thing. If you're not tapped into your own frequency, I don't think that tapping into those higher frequencies is a terribly responsible thing to do. I've seen this happen a lot in the spiritual communities. I see people sort of relying more on that intuitive information and almost gaslighting, bypassing, and disconnecting from the frequency coming from inside their own bodies. I'm going to explain how this weaves into authenticity in a minute. And forgive me, this is some high-level Will Hunting shit. So I would save this and watch it a few times just in case you're not 100% sure. You'll get it once you listen to it a few times. So there's another frequency in the human experience, and it's called your own fucking emotions. Shame, fear, anger, grief, guilt, anxiety, fear, all those survival-based emotions. I call that inner child work. Some people might call it trauma work. In other words, an understanding of your own specific, unique frequency as a human being in their survival-based emotional experiences. If you have ever looked at the Map of Consciousness by David Hawkins, basically it gives a spectrum of frequencies, shame being the lowest frequency, coming in at about 20 hertz, enlightenment coming in at about 1,000, right? And the broad spectrum of frequencies between those two extremes. If you haven't done work on yourself, if you haven't popped the hood on your childhood, your trauma, you haven't done your healing work, you haven't understood what shame means for you, what fear means for you, how your ego has managed those things, you're not grounded enough to channel. And I'm not judging. I'm not saying that people that are channeling and haven't done inner child work are doing something wrong. What I'm trying to do is remind you, inform you, give you more information so that you can practically apply it. And I'm going to do the best I can to help you do that. That doesn't mean you have to rush out and get a therapist. This means you have to acquaint yourself with inner child work. And what inner child work really means is beginning to create a communication with this part of you that is in these denser emotions, right? That little girl inside you, that little boy inside you, when you get triggered by somebody or something, and that trigger leads you right back to that part of yourself that you have the opportunity to begin to acquaint yourself with. Because if you don't manage those lower frequency emotions, your ego will do it and you can't ground. Every spiritual person gives me a fucking hard time about this, and I can't tell you why I know it's important, but I do. It's kind of like only valuing an inhale and not valuing an exhale. You can't responsibly tap into those higher frequencies until you have become acquainted with your own lower frequencies. Now, this is why there's another division and why this is so detrimental, because the spiritual community is all about high vibration. The mental health community is all about like monetizing lower frequency emotion. They make a lot of money on those survival-based emotions. They're not teaching people how to use them. They're teaching people how to be like, please help me, I'm sick. It's like, you're not sick. You just need to get to know who you are. This is why nervous system flexibility is really the only way to move through this plane. You've got to be flexible in your nervous system. People that are inflexible in their own nervous systems, first of all, cannot responsibly channel, and they will never heal. More importantly, you will never become authentic if you can't move through that sort of broad spectrum of emotional experiences. You can't expect to feel like yourself unless you are allowing yourself to explore these frequencies in a different way. Here's the kicker. Authenticity is a paradox. Okay, so we get the spiritual frequencies, we get the survival-based frequencies. Are we good on that? Here's authenticity. Is the totality of what those frequencies and how you've interpreted that through your own personality mean about you. In other words, authenticity is paradoxical. It means I am light, I am dark, I am both. I'm not afraid of my dark emotions, and I am responsible enough to intuit these higher frequency experiences. In other words, authenticity is your ability to navigate the awareness of your own ego and how your ego has interpreted both high and lower frequency emotion based on your past experiences. The definition of authentic power is when your personality, this thing you've been developing your whole life, is now in service of your soul. Better said, when your collection of trauma responses that helped you survive your childhood now are applied to navigating these higher frequency emotions. Long story short, do your fucking inner child work and your intuition will improve.